All right, so you guys asked for it, and you're not going to get it in this video because you guys want to get the defensive, video that I said that I was going to make. I'm still going to make that. However, I wanted to get this out because the Bengals just upset the Vikings. And the reason I say upset is because really, while they should have won that game from the get-go, if you watch that game, the flow of it, they were down 17-3 going into the fourth quarter, and the Bengals were able to score 14 unanswered, then send it to overtime. Just an incredible job by them to stay in this game when, they lose DJ Reader at the beginning. But let's talk about from the Rams perspective. This game is huge, and here's why. So let's get into it. New York Times, they have a model. Obviously, I've been telling you guys about it. It's a little weird. I think I've kind of lost some faith in it this week because they were at 38% chance of making the playoffs. Then without an NFC team actually playing on Thursday Night Football, it was the Chargers and the Raiders. Without a team playing, we've now seen that shift all the way down to 31%. Now, it's important to realize it is a model. It's an analytical model, so this thing can change. But the article that New York Times came out with showed that they now have a 31% chance. So it makes it a little weird. I did the math. I did the everything in there. And the Bengals winning now gives them a 34% chance of making the playoffs going into tomorrow. But I looked, and it's interesting because ESPN has the Rams at over 40% chance of making the playoffs. That was going in to this Vikings-Bengals game. So why is it important? Why am I going to talk about it? Also, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and follow me on all social media at JKBogan if you like anything I have to say. So let's talk about it. Rams 6-7. We've talked about it at length. The number 8 seed right now in the playoff race. The Commanders this week, at SoFi Stadium tomorrow. The Saints short week, Thursday Night Football at SoFi. Then they go to MetLife Stadium. I will be there week 17 of the season. And then they finish up the season, the finale in San Francisco, week 18. The Packers also 6-7 following their loss to Tommy DeVito's Giants. They have a very important game this weekend at home against the Buccaneers. They also play the Panthers the following week on the road. They play the Vikings the following week after that on the road. And then they wrap up the season against a Bears team at home that they normally just handle and take care of business, but that could be an interesting little game. Worth noting, the Rams have to have one more win than the Packers to make the playoffs over the Packers. The Packers currently have the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Rams, and that will not be changing since they beat the Rams with a backup quarterback in Brett Rippon, who probably never should have been on the team to begin with and in that position. But anyway, the Vikings right now, okay? They are 7-7 following their defeat at the hands of the Bengals. This is massive here. The Vikings now being 7-7, they do have the tiebreaker based on win percentage in conference games over the Rams. This is likely going to stay the way it is. The Vikings will likely have that tiebreaker, but they only have 3 games left now. They did just drop this. The maximum wins they can have is 10. So if the Rams were to win out and the Vikings were to win out, then the Vikings would, of course, have a tiebreaker over the Rams in that regard. However, they do play the Lions next week. That is going to be in Minnesota. They play the Packers in Minnesota, and then they go on the road week 18 against the Detroit Lions. There's a chance they lose all 3 of these games. There's a chance they could win all 3. We haven't seen great play out of Jared Goff or the Lions offense. The defense has given up everything. So we'll see if the Lions respond the right way. They got 2 opportunities here against the Vikings to close out this season. And then, of course, that Packers game's interesting because should the Packers lose another game, they would now have 8 losses. So if Tampa beats Green Bay goes to 6-8. If the Rams beat the Commanders, their ceiling is still 10-7. Green Bay's has now drastically gone down to 9-8 on a 2-game losing streak. Now, this is where it gets fascinating because if the Vikings lose to the Lions, both of these teams now have a ceiling of 9-8. And if they play each other and one of them loses, that team's likely going to be out of the playoffs. And if the Rams win out, they're in, doesn't even matter. But if the Rams lose a game, that could be huge in terms of one of those teams losing the magic number 9 losses to put the Rams in the playoffs. So that's a really fascinating thing there. Seattle's also still in this thing. They don't have the tiebreaker over the Rams, but should the Rams drop a game, Seattle wins out. Seattle would go 10-7. The Rams would go 9-8. They would not need the tiebreaker and would get in the playoffs over the Rams. What do they currently have left on their schedule? Well, they get the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football at home, potentially Drew Lock starting his second game in a row. We'll see. That's a huge game. Everyone should be rooting for the Eagles in that one. You want the Seahawks out of this thing. If they go 9-8, and that's the thing, if Seattle beats, the Eagles beat Seattle, that's 6-8. That means their ceiling is 9-8 that they can go. That means they would need the Rams to lose 9 games to have a shot over them, because the Rams would have the tiebreaker over the Seattle Seahawks due to head-to-head. The Titans game, that doesn't look easy anymore, right? So they go on the road against the Titans. They got the Steelers at home. We'll see what ends up happening. They might have Kenny Pickett by then. And then they finish the season, what could be a trap game depending on how they do things. They finished the season against the Arizona Cardinals on the road. Then you look at the Bucs right now. They have the 4th seed. It's a little weird this week. If the Bucs win, they beat the Packers and the Falcons beat the Panthers, then the Rams wouldn't have a spot in the playoffs going into week 16. And that's okay. This thing will play itself out, but it is pretty fascinating when you think about it. So right now, what did this do for the Rams odds? Well, I would say that the Rams have a 50-50 shot of making the playoffs if they win this weekend. And just considering what happened with the Vikings, I would probably give them a 50% chance. Now, mathematically, it might be more like 48, 49. Right now, the New York Times thing, I don't know if they're going to update it. It just feels off. Like, to have them drop 7 percentage points just out of the blue when only AFC teams played is just weird to me. So I don't know about that. But I think with the ESPN percentage around 40%, or a little bit over 40%, having them win a game should put that up by 5%. And then having the Vikings lose a game should put that around 50. So there you have it, folks. That's what this win means for the Rams. It's a big deal. It means the Vikings, they really are they're in a tough position here. If they win out, that protects, them against the Rams. They would have the tiebreaker. If they lose one more game and the Rams win out, the Rams surpass them. And if they lose 2 more games, the Rams can lose another game on their schedule and be ahead of them. So the Vikings are in some trouble now. Is Nick Mullins going to be the starter the rest of the way? I mean, they might look at it like he didn't play too bad and they had a chance to win, but they might also look at it like they need to put Josh Dobbs back in there or the rookie. To me, I don't know which way you go, but either way, I'm going to say this right now. I think the Rams today are going to the playoffs. I think I've said this for a while, but I feel like this win was massive. This is one where you look back on, and this could be the thing that ultimately pushes the Rams past the Vikings. The Vikings got a little hot at one point, and now they're starting to cool off a little bit. You got to give a lot of credit. Brian Flores' defense is legit. Could give Jared Goff some fits. Could give Jordan Love some fits. But are they going to win 3 straight? I don't think so. So we'll see how it all happens. Again, this is the NFL. Anything can change. The Packers can beat the Bucs. They can win out, and then they have the tiebreaker over the Rams at 10-7. But that game, the fact that still left on the schedule is a Vikings-Packers matchup is really fascinating. And to just go a little bit further here with the Lions, if the Lions lose to the Broncos, they have the Vikings twice on their schedule. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you should not be rooting for the Lions necessarily. There's a chance it makes more sense for the Lions to lose out than it does for the Vikings for the Rams to get in. The reason being is the Rams would have that tiebreaker over the Lions, believe it or not. They're the only one of those 3 teams in that division the Rams would have a tiebreaker over. However, again, before I end this thing, just a reminder, they got to take care of business, folks. They got a really important game this weekend against the Commanders. Doesn't matter what record they are. That's a conference game. That changes the outcome of tiebreakers. Then you go into Thursday night. Thursday night's a huge game. You get a mini bye. Look at what this team did with a regular bye. Now you give them a mini bye week right before the last 2 games of the regular season. That could be huge. But the key here is that the Rams have to win the next 3 games, 100%, no questions asked. They can't lose any of these next 3. They can't lose to Washington. They can't lose to New Orleans. And they cannot lose to the Giants. The Giants are still even in it, too. They're 5-8. So are the Bears, but the Giants have a chance to secure that head-to-head tiebreaker over the Rams and make things very interesting, especially with they have the Eagles twice down the stretch, but the Eagles haven't been playing super well. And this Saints game this weekend is massive. So we're going to see. Can the Rams do it? I think they can. I think they're one of the best teams in football currently right now. It's not about how your season went. It's about how it's going. And as long as you get into the playoffs and those losses that you had against the Bengals, against the Steelers, against the Packers, if you don't let that beat you enough where you can still get in the playoffs, those losses mean nothing. It's a clean slate when you get into the playoffs and anything can happen. So yes, I'm feeling very good about the Rams right now, but this win in particular was more important than the Packers losing to the Giants. It may not reflect that with the percentage points, but it really was. This was massive. You got to get the Lions down. Again, think of it as a ceiling and you'll be fine. The Rams right now, they have 7 losses. That's their ceiling. They can go 10-7. If they lose a game, it's down to 9-8. If they lose another, it's 8-9. Think of it as ceiling and you won't drive yourself crazy. All you got to look at, Rams can be 10-7. Packers can be 10-7. The Vikings can still be 10-7. Seattle can be 10-7. The Bucks, the Falcons, the Saints, all can still be 10-7. The Giants and Bears can only be 9-8. The Lions. The Lions can still lose out and they could still only win 9 games. Not saying that's going to happen. So that's really that. That's the ceiling. I just wanted to throw this out here for you guys. I'm still planning on making that defensive video. Might even record it right after this. But I just wanted to get that out there to you guys because I think it's important to keep you guys informed on everything that's going on. There's a lot of stuff to be excited about, but if you're blindly rooting and you don't understand what's going on, it's not as fun, right? When you see people on Twitter, Rams fans that are rooting for the Bengals and you don't know why, and you're just like, yeah, the Vikings, they look like they could be a problem in the playoffs. Maybe that's why. It's better to know exactly what it's bringing to the table. So that was my goal today, to throw that out there, to give you an idea, an illustration. We'll keep doing this. We'll stay up to date on this team. Still plenty of content left to be, put out there. And it's a big time of year. I mean, anytime the Rams are fighting for a playoff spot, it's going to be exciting. A lot of people are going to be watching. So, I just want to step up to the plate and give you guys the best content I can and most informative content that I can. Because right now, I don't think ESPN or some of the bigger ones are talking strictly about the Rams. You're getting that because, that's what I want you to get. So, again, speaking of which, ESPN over 40%, I find that very interesting. I think, like I said, I think the Rams go back to 50-50. They go up to 50-50 if they win this week, regardless of the Packers' outcome. Packers still have some games on their schedule they could lose. I'm not saying they're going to lose to the Panthers. I'm not saying they're going to lose to the Bears. However, I will say that Bucks game is pretty big. So we'll see what ends up happening, folks. Just all I can say, if you want to keep things simple, Packers, you want them to lose. You want the Vikings to lose. When they play each other, who's ever a bigger threat to the Rams' playoff odds, that's the team you want to lose. Really that simple. Seattle, you want to lose. You want the Falcons to lose. You want the Bucks to lose. You want the Saints. You want the Giants. Any team that could interfere with the Rams' playoff chances, you want them to lose. So appreciate you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can follow me as always at JKBogan on social media, and I will see you guys soon. Later, folks.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.
Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.